So we're wondering what a typical day looks like in your mission.
Um, Cup of coffee
Amen.
and devotions. Um, I usually get up a little earlier than Sue does, and then when she gets up and we're both in our own spots. I'm in our home office, and she has her corner rocking chair in the living room. So to read in the scriptures a while and meditate on it and pray. Then I'm off to my space here where I am right now, the pastor's studio, in German, Pastoren Atelier. Some of my artwork you can see in the background. But it's my office here. So I try to get here at about 8 each day. And then I do my work, but I get interrupted all the time by design. Because I've got my door open, wet, moderate climate that we have. 15 years or so I've been in here. I've gotten to know a lot of people from the neighborhood that walk by on their way to go shopping at the market or grocery store or whatever. And but then I meet new people all the time. They're just curious what a pastor's studio is and come in and ask, or maybe they'll see the artwork and be attracted, and there you're already in a conversation. And that's my goal, is just to draw people toward Jesus. If they're far away from him, or even if they're closer, we could always get closer to the Lord. And yeah, and then there's different regular events that happen here, which are, some of them are outreach for me, like the English conversation group that I started about 1.5 years ago, Sunday afternoons. Folks that want to practice their English for whatever reason. There's no plan or agenda other than my agenda as a follower of Jesus to draw them all closer to Jesus little by little, without bowling them over with by coming on too strong. And we have a good time, and we've met together to eat a few times, and yeah, and some of them have shown interest in spiritual things, and that's always a great encouragement, but some of them not at all, and have to just respect that and still develop the relationship. Then we have a weekly Bible study here too. I've got a teeny little kitchen in the back here that I cook up a pot of soup every week, and we just read in the scriptures together and have a discussion about what we've read and pray together. And that's just people from the neighborhood that one by one have joined that group. So none of them were church people before, or in our church at least, before they got involved in that. You can hear my voice. I'm just getting over. I had a terrible bronchitis, and I actually lost my voice completely. But I'm on my way back now, but it's still a little rough. Yeah, so that's my days are spent here. I try to get out for a little exercise in the afternoons on my bike usually, or taking a walk. But then there's other stuff, like yesterday I was in Gießen. It's about 2 hours away from here, for the seminary board meeting. I'm on the board of the Gießen School of Theology, and 3 times a year there's a 1-day meeting. So that was yesterday. It was a long day. I left the house at 6:30 and got back at, what was it, about 9 in the evening, 9:30, something like that. Yeah. So, and then there's always different things that come up. there's variety. And Sue?
Yeah, well, you kind of described my my beginning like yours. At this point in time, I'm in my teaching semester, and so that really occupies me. I teach all day on Wednesdays and sometimes on another day in the week too, and so other days of the week I need for preparation and follow up and administrative things. Um, and I think there's another question here too that says, at what level do I teach? I'm teaching at the university level. Um, my I teach intercultural competency, and my students are all becoming police officers of the state that we live in. And they in our state, in this state here, it's a little bit like the United States in that each state regulates the training process of their police force. So it's different from state to state. But the state that we're in, they actually are get a bachelor's degree as a part of their training. So their training is long. It's three plus years. Um, and there's the students that I have are in their first year, and it's part of their basic studies, and it's a required course. So they all go through it, whether they like it or not. Most people, I can remember my own student days. You know, most students don't like required courses. But yeah, and I have I'm about halfway through, and I just shy of 100 students. And once the teaching part is over at the end of April, then I will still be grading term papers until beginning of June. So yeah, anyone who's done anything like that kind of has an idea of what that's about. And in the past, I have also been a teacher guidance for bachelor theses also. I chose not to do that this year, but when I do that, then when I am guiding bachelor theses, then I actually work through the summer until the end of August when I do that. But I won't be doing that. I'm pulling back a bit with age and time. I find I don't have the energy I used to have. So yeah. And then I'm involved in other things too. Some of the things, obviously, our weekly Bible study, um, which is important to me. Any church activities that we're involved in, I'm always involved. Um, and for quite a while, a number of years, I actually led all of our tutoring and classes, German classes for refugees and immigrants, which also took place at Jason's location there. That no longer is going on formally, but I still have contact with several of these people ongoing. In particular, one woman named Zara, who is an Afghani, but lived in Iran all her life, that's the case of many Afghanis. Um, and and also another Iranian woman, Fatemeh. Um, so I still, when possible, I meet with them and along with a German woman, and we try to help them out. Right now, during my when I'm teaching, I don't do it as often, but then I always go back to it when I have more time.
Was there a specific point in your ministry when you felt like it shifted from the typical missionary role to more of a typical pastor role? Or was the model from the beginning consistent as it is as it is now?
Well, when we came, I mean, we basically left Greencastle for Germany. I thought my ministry would be much more music-based, music with evangelism and outreach and stuff. But the only category that Greater Europe Mission had that would fit into was church planting and evangelism. That's what it was called back then. And lo and behold, there was a church plant being formed right when we were coming. And I ended up being the founding pastor along with a group of believers in that part of the city. Yeah, so that immediately was my role then, pastor. But a church planting pastor, it's a little different than a normal pastor because there's a lot of you're concentrating a lot more on outreach and trying to find to collect the sheep from the area and bring them into the fold. And so there's way more emphasis on that than there is like your normal pastor of an existing church. And that suited me just fine. I've just always been like an innovator and trying out things. I'm not really very good at like administration and counseling too. I do quite a bit of counseling because that's part of reaching new people, and a lot of times people come with a lot of burdens and problems, but it's not my favorite thing, and a lot of times I just want to say snap out of it, but I don't. Yeah, so that's really been my sweet spot, is this church planting pastor thing. Having the title pastor is really helpful for me here, because it's important to Germans. Titles is very important to Germans, and so I can say that, and then so I have this kind of status in their eyes where I then can talk with them. And then they realize I'm certainly not a typical German pastor, and I'm also not a typical pastor. So yeah, but it helps get into discussions with people and break the ice.
Is there a frustration you face in your ministry currently?
We don't have any frustration.
Oh. I guess that's the answer, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's your everyday headaches. It's like anyone else.
I don't know, while you're thinking about it, Jay, I don't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Maybe it's partly our age because we've been in ministry so long that we've weathered a lot of frustrations, and so maybe it doesn't seem as frustrating to us anymore. I would say that in general, a lack of commitment is a frustration. Whether it's either in people's own spiritual walk, their own personal walk, or a lack of commitment to fellowship or whatever. And
Yeah, that's really true. That is
I
a
would
frustration.
say that that's probably, yeah, you know, and whether that's it's probably an ongoing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that leads, yeah, that's good, Sue, that you said that, because it just it leads them to like we're constantly being disappointed. We had hoped we had hoped more for this person or that person in their own personal life. And, you know, you invest in them and you encourage them and you're helping them along and you think they're maybe even making some progress. And then they just flake out and don't follow through on things that they themselves wanted to, and they perhaps disappoint themselves as well. But then it's a disappointment to us, and to deal with that sort of, it's like ongoing. There's always been disappointments in that regard. And then when they've committed to something in the church, you know, that they're going to help with this or they're going to do that, and then they flake out. That's another disappointment that we just had to deal with and give to the Lord over and over and over again. I mean, I'm sure I disappoint people too. So we just need a lot of grace. And that's how I try to respond to these disappointments, is with grace. But it's not always easy.
Share something miraculous that has happened anytime in your years there. And I know, Sue, you grew up there, but can you think of a specific that you would share with our congregation?
Well, I think in general, again, you know, with the number of years we've been doing this, I think the first thing I think of is just God's provision in our life is amazing. And obviously, you know, one of the first things you think of is financial, and that's huge for missionaries like us who actually live off of you know, free will donations, and don't receive any kind of a guaranteed income. And that's just kind of really crazy when you think about it over so many years. There have been so many times that God has led us in our ministries and in our work. Just with the church plants and things like that. And in my own work, it was always amazing to me how I felt him calling, or how I felt him nudging me to do things. And I would think, God, I can't do that. I'm not capable of it. I just can't. I don't think, or at least I don't think I have the ability. And and then he continues to lead and open doors and to provide whatever it is, the abilities that I need to do it. Which is just, again, as Jason said, it's just his grace in our lives. It's amazing to me. I teach in German, which is humbling. And I believe me, 30 years ago, if someone had said that I would be teaching college students in German, I would have said no, absolutely not. But and you know, I mean, Jason faced that a lot sooner than I did, because once you start preaching in another language, that's also that's it's it's an enormous thing as far as just ability goes, and in other ways too, where he's enabled us, and that's incredible. And it's his grace in our lives. You know, we've from the beginning, we said, yes, we're willing to do this, and you just step out. I think maybe that's just to encourage others who say, I think maybe God's nudging me to do something. To I think the most important thing is to constantly be saying, yes, I'm willing, Lord, and then wait for the next step and the next door that opens, because he will, if that's what he's doing, then he will provide, he will give you what you need, he will open that door, just to keep faithful, to keep going one step at a time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we live, or our context in Germany too, it's not one of these cultures where you see these huge movements of masses of people coming to faith. It's a lot of slow growth, but there is growth that we look back on, and you know, every changed life is really miraculous. And some of those we get to be a part of directly, but you know, the longer we've been at this, the more we learn about how God used us in people's lives back then, whenever it was, but we knew nothing about it. And one example is the first church that we started over 30 years ago. We lived in a townhouse, and our neighbors directly next to us was a young family too, and we were just neighborly to them, and they knew what I did, but they were moderately involved in the Lutheran church. Yeah, everything was cool. And then towards the end of our time at that first church plant, we did an evangelistic week of meetings, and the husband, I invited him to come one of those nights, and he came, and he prayed a prayer of confession. And so that was really cool, but then nothing really seemed to happen after that. There, you know, there wasn't like this direct, oh, I'm going to get involved in Bible study, I'm going to do this and that. And then at some point we moved away from there. It turns out that God just worked in their entire family, and they started attending that church that we helped start, but after we were already gone. And now I go back a couple times a year to preach there, and we see them every time, and it's so awesome. And their kids are following the Lord, and they've gone to Bible school and stuff like that. And so that whole thing is a miracle that we weren't, like, we didn't have the front row seats for it, but God used us as a part of that process in their lives. And yeah, it's just always great to see them. And she leads a fantastic ministry at that church, where they provide food and groceries for like senior citizens that are needy, like poor elderly people. Every week they have a big deal where they provide all these food and groceries for them, and she leads that whole thing at the church.
Is there anything that you miss from the States apart from your children?
You guys.
Oh,
Yay. Good answer.
Yeah, right. Answer. Actually, you know, not so much after all these years, you just we've just become so adjusted to life in Germany. Obviously relationships, family is the biggest one. And you know, even our close friendships that we had at that point in time with, you know, like people there in Greencastle, we still are in contact with some of them, but it's not that closeness that it used to be. And which is what happens when there's so much distance over the years. Yeah. So other than that, we really don't miss things from the United States, other than just simply people and relationships. Yeah.
So we were curious why you're working with the Greater European Mission rather than the American Baptist.
It might be better if I started that answer because it's my fault.
oh.
I'm an MK, you know, I'm a missionary child. And it's kind of the only life I've ever known, I guess. in a lot of ways. But I was born in Germany, and my parents were the first church planters, actually, with Greater Europe Mission, starting back in, I have to think about when they first came, 1956, I think. And so the mission that we're with, Greater Europe Mission, has been my mission home all of my life. So that was one of the big reasons that we went with Greater Europe Mission. And my dad was for years in leadership in Greater Europe Mission too, which was really helpful for us when we actually went to raising financial support, because he had contacts with so many churches, which was really helpful for us. The other thing is that God was calling us to Europe, and specifically to Germany, and Greater Europe Mission actually focuses on Europe, and had already quite an infrastructure and a network here in Germany, which also appealed to us. Yeah, so that's probably the biggest reason. But we actually, even here in Cologne, there are some other mission entities. I don't know. I'm not sure what American Baptist is doing in Germany. Maybe you guys know. We're not aware of, at least not in the Cologne area anyways. There are people here with other Baptist missions. Southern Baptists are here. And we actually get together as just ministry workers occasionally, like 3 or 4 times a year, and sometimes even collaborate on things, and support each other and pray together. We share and pray together. Yeah. But that was, I think, probably the biggest reason that we are with Greater Europe Mission instead of American Baptist.
We didn't grow up in an American Baptist church. We came when I was called to be associate pastor. So we kind of came in from the side, and yeah, so it wasn't like this strong denominational sense. We were happy and on board, and I was ordained as an American Baptist pastor back then, while in Greencastle. But yeah.
What is your greatest need?
Jesus.
Yeah, the right answer again. Yeah, that's interesting. Again, I would say after all these years of being in ministry, I mean, we really, on the one side, we're so amazed at God's provision in our lives, but we also are very acutely aware of our dependence on Him. And so I guess that's the other side of that. Yeah, just leaning into Jesus is really probably the greatest need. As far as just daily life goes in general, and understanding that in everything that we do, that we need His Spirit and His blessing on it. Yeah.
Is there someone or in your ministry or for you that we can specifically pray for?
I would ask you again to pray especially for this woman, Zara, that I continue to have contact with. We've really had a lot of contacts with refugees and immigrants when in 2015, 16, 17, when there were so many that came in to the country, that there are still quite a large number that come in compared to the United States. I'll just say it that way. But but it's nothing like it was back then. Although there have been many times, yeah, right. With this will touch on another question here about how has the Ukrainian war conflict affected you. When the Ukrainian conflict, Russian war started, there were close to 1 million Ukrainians that came into Germany. And there are still a lot of them that are here. Yeah, it's interesting because unlike the refugees that poured in from Syria and Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan a few years back, a lot of them just got on a train or they drove. Like you see a lot of cars in Cologne with Ukrainian license plates because it's not very far away. So yeah, but anyways, we had this contact with a lot of contact with refugees, and we still, like I said, we still have relationships and see them ongoing. Jason sees them, every now and then they drop in and talk to him, and I still have some contacts. And we've had a lot of spiritual conversations. I've had a lot of spiritual conversations, especially with Sarah. And of course, we long for them to find their ultimate refuge in the Lord, and that's definitely a prayer request. But it takes, I think, especially with Muslim background people, you really have to have a long view, a really long view, and yeah, so you could pray for that, definitely.
The cultural climate, what would you say it's like in Germany now with so many diverse groups of people who have infiltrated your space now?
Actually, Germany has been extremely multicultural even before
Mhm.
2015. Um, there's a lot of history there. Well, if you want to go way back, I mean, it's in the middle of Europe, so literally in the middle of Europe, and so there's there's just a lot of cultural exchange here with all of these countries that surround Germany. Um, yeah. And then if you go back to just after World War II, for instance, there was a huge lack of manpower in Germany because so many men were killed in the war. And they didn't have, they literally did not have the manpower for their industries. And so they invited men to come from other countries. And that was the first time in more recent history that there was this huge influx of people from other countries. The Turkish immigrant population is the biggest immigrant population in Germany.
Also from Greece and Italy,
Yeah, Greece and Italy,
Southern Europe,
a lot of Southern Europeans also came up. And originally people thought they would just come and work for a while and they came without their families. But what happened is a lot of them stayed uh, and then brought their families over. So there is this, so Germany's really been very multicultural for a long time. Obviously when you have a huge influx within like a 1 year period of time, then and especially in this case, because there were so many people that came from the Middle Central Asia and the Middle East in 2015, 2016. And so that was a kind of a different situation than they had faced before. And the country itself kind of reeled from that a bit, but they caught up with it as far as how to process the influx of people. And they actually initiated a lot of programs, which probably should have been initiated before, to try and help people to integrate, because it's going to go a lot smoother if you actually help people to integrate into a country. Instead of just kind of letting them be out there on their own. And actually requiring them to integrate, is, is basically what it has come down to. So that's, yeah. But yeah, like I say, the multicultural atmosphere has really been here for a long time.
What's your favorite German dish? Whichever one holds your favorite German food.
It often foods related to special occasions, I guess maybe is one thing. I mean, Germans are, their meat and potatoes, or their traditional food is meat and potatoes and lots of vegetables. They're big on vegetables. And in this part of Germany, you actually have a growing season all year round. So, um, but around Christmas time, in some places you can get them all the time, but it's more prevalent around Christmas time, and that is potato pancakes. I love them. Or latkes is, depending on what culture, what tradition you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, and interestingly enough, because Germany is so multicultural, there's a lot of different kinds of foods here. Jason has often called Cologne the most northern Italian city in Europe. And there are a lot of Italian restaurants. And if it's an Italian restaurant, it is Italians who run it and who cook. And so, yeah, we like Italian food too.
Yeah.
And they're using grandma's recipes. I mean, it's authentic. We have a little place around the corner from us that we've lived in our present place for 20 years now. So we are we're like VIPs there now. And Salvatore is the head guy now. He used to just shove the pizzas into the wood oven, and then when the owners tired, he was able to swing a deal to take over the place. They're always packed. You always have to call several days ahead to get a table. But yeah.
Kind of like that question. What is your favorite German holiday?
Well, that's for us, with our, if your Christian faith is meaningful to you, we love the way they celebrate Christmas and Easter. They're actually still holidays in Germany. Christmas is a 2-day holiday, or actually almost a 3-day holiday, and
Well,
Easter.
Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
Those are all official holidays.
And Easter is a 4-day holiday. And it's probably the biggest religious holiday here is Easter. But I do love the emphasis, especially, right, Easter is probably my favorite religious holiday, because of the emphasis on it. I don't know, I was just reading again recently some commentary about, and Paul, I think in the Corinthians several times he says, well, if Christ did not raise from the dead, if he was not raised from the dead, our faith is in vain. And it's just such a powerful holiday, I think. And then as far as the church tradition goes, here too, like they celebrate Easter for 6 weeks, as far as the different church holidays go. And I love that emphasis. Now, your average German probably doesn't even know what a bunch of those holidays or what the meaning is. You know, you get to Pentecost and Ascension and all of those are holidays here. So that's I love that. I love as a believer, someone whose faith is meaningful to me. I think yes, let's just keep celebrating that. Let's just keep putting an emphasis on it. Yeah.
So if you could pick a place other than the US or Germany, is there someplace else that you would like to have served in this context?
We were actually offered a ministry once in an island off of Africa, where there were a lot of German immigrants, and we were invited to go down there and lead a German church. But we turned it down. Just didn't. I mean, it sounded so exotic and wonderful, but we just feel so called to the German people and to this context. And I've often said, if God were to call us away from Cologne, which we've grown to love, we love the city, we would like him to call us to Berlin. Whenever we've been there for meetings or whatever, it's an awesome city. So it's still Germany, I know, but
Okay.
We felt such a strong call. Actually, when we were very young, you know, when we first got married to go to Germany, and that has always remained that way. That calling, it has never weakened in any way or, waned. And Europe, I guess maybe I could imagine serving in another European country. We really feel like, although a lot of people say, well, why Europe? You know, I mean, it's where the roots of Christianity is. But it's just this tradition and a lot of holidays that people don't know what they mean. But other than that, the percentage of the people who really have a relationship with God or and of evangelicals is so minute here. It's just really minute. The other thing too is that going back to the multicultural thing, the world meets in Europe. If you and you can often, because we have the freedom to be open about our faith here and to talk about our faith, you can do amazing ministry to the nations in Europe. And yeah, I find that also very fascinating and very interesting. Yeah.
A fun one. And Jason, if you can only have one, what would you choose, a mustache or beard? And what is Sue's preference?
I'm not gonna play your game. It's either all or nothing.
An all or nothing guy.
Yeah, and I don't think I should comment on that.
Good call.
You would prefer the beard gone and more hair up here. That's what.
Question about retirement. And we're wondering if you've thought about it and if you have plans for it, what would you do? Where would you go? What would you be, etc. Just fill us in.
You can't imagine how much we've thought about it and have wrestled with each other the last, I don't know, several years. Because I just can't imagine retiring. I can't imagine not doing what I'm doing. It's hard for me to imagine that. But what, maybe a year or so ago, we finally came to a decision about it in some way. And that is that in the year 2028, we will both turn 70. And I'm not planning on retiring then, but we are planning on moving to Denver to be close to Sam.
Yeah.
It was either Denver or Pennsylvania, and we have a lot more connections with Denver.
Family.
And we just thought, or Sue finally convinced me that it would be better to do it of our own free will while we're still able to. Because someday we most likely are going to need some help from our kids. Not necessarily, but most likely. And to be so far away from them wouldn't be fair to them. But my plans right now is to continue in ministry with Greater Europe Mission from Denver. I'm mentoring young church planters. I have a couple right now. I hope to grow that more, to be like a handful of young church planters that I mentor, just to help them along from my experience and my vast wisdom. And then I hope to continue to being involved with the seminary in promoting it and being involved in the board, which would require then 3 trips a year back to Germany for the board meetings. And then I could combine that with visiting church planners to encourage them and mentor them. And then there are some other things we could do with the mission too, including just recruiting young missionaries to come to Germany and to get involved. I was asked yesterday too, what can I do to recruit academics like professors, seminary professors for the school, because the rector of the school, he told me we love to have several Americans on our faculty. It just brings us so much. And so, yeah, if I'm there in the States, I can actively look for those kind of people and hopefully do some recruiting too, and some fundraising for the seminary as well. So yeah, that's our plan. 3 more years here, and then pack up and make the big move. And it's no small thing on our minds, just physically and logistically, but emotionally for us to think of moving away from here, because this is our home now, and to leave, it's hard for us. And we know from previous missionary friends who have gone before us that it's really it's a big deal, and it's hard. Just the cultural adjustment alone, making new friends, finding a new church, a new home, getting used to the culture. It's not the same America that we left 33 years ago. It'll be a big change for us. Did you want to add anything, Sue?
I do. I don't know. The fact that I do what I do right now, and just the work with immigrants and refugees, which I could have never imagined. Like I say, God has enabled me there. I've lost my fear of contact with other cultures and with people who are very different than me. Um, and I would love it, no matter where I am, to get involved in that kind of a thing, and helping other people uh, too, because I now have that skill, not just for myself, but in teaching. I've developed all kinds of seminars and training for church groups. I guess I didn't talk about that. That's something else I do on the side. Even for Greater Europe Mission, I've done it for the denomination that we are involved with here. And I delight in that, and in being able to do that also with in a lot of those settings. And I can be very open and talk about the biblical perspective of it, which I really enjoy doing, and bringing
And
that
she
in.
does and she does a great job.
Yeah, so I can imagine just doing that no matter where I am, as God leads. Yeah.
Well, the last question for you. Can you name a fond memory of your time here at First Baptist in Greencastle?
Let's hope that's a yes. It's been so long ago.
At First Baptist, I mean, it's just that fellowship that for me was so precious. And I mean, I'm looking at Carla and Diane and it's that kind of a thing, and other relationships that we had with people too outside of First Baptist, that is for me the fondest memory. And it's just, even though we don't connect very often or very much, it's still that joy, when you do connect. And yeah. Living close to the campus of DePauw was always kind of an adventure. And maybe maybe it showed how kind of different we are, in that we found the students so interesting, and kind of being literally on campus when we lived there. That was always a very interesting thing. I don't know, I could think of one of Jason, but maybe you were going to say that, so I'm not sure I should say it. It was something you were involved in there that I thought was really a cool thing, and that was Habitat for Humanity. And the people he got to know, especially through that. Yeah.
No, that was a cool thing. And we still have contact with some of those people outside of First Baptist that we got to know through Habitat. But one of my what came to mind was playing softball. I don't know, did we have a church team then? I think we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
And playing at Roban Park.
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason, they put me at shortstop. And the opposing team, the guy smacked a line drive, headed straight for me, but like over my head. And so I jumped up to catch it, and it hit me square in the forehead and knocked me down. That's one of my fond memories.
Well, I'm sure you'd have many more, except you got hit in the head.
Well, I've got a hard head. I've been hit in the head so many times in my life.
Well, is there anything else you would like to share with us before we close out and let you get on with your afternoon?
There's something that's really captured my imagination right now. And that is, I'm opening a whole new little mission field here to a segment of Cologne that I'm very excited about. If you've been following us at all, you may remember that for the last year or so, I've been struggling with my voice. It would just drop out on me for no reason at all. And then come back, and it was unpredictable. And I was at doctors and experts, and even at the hospital for a full throat examination under can't remember how to say it in English. Full narcose. They put me under for the examination, and they couldn't figure anything out. Everything looked okay. There's no growths or anything. And but then the only thing they suggested is that I go to speech therapy. And I thought, no, that's what I thought. No. But then it got me thinking, I need to start singing again, because I hadn't sung for years, because as a church planting pastor, I just was always trying to get the people involved, and usually the first ones that step up are musicians. So they could sing some or could play the guitar or piano. And so I took a back seat musically for years and years. So I started singing just on my own, and then I went a little crazy and took some lessons from a jazz singer. I have a classical music degree, church music from Bible school, but yeah. And then the newest thing now is through a contact from our English group here. There's an old traditional organization here, and it's basically a men's choir, but at a high level musically. And they sing classical, but also church music, and then like folk songs, traditional German folk songs, and then traditional Cologne folk songs in the dialect. And it's quite a process to get accepted in. But I've taken the first step, and now they've invited me to go to their choir school, is what they call it, because they get untrained musicians that would like to be a part of it too, that can sing, that have a nice voice, and have to go to that. And then at some point, the voice teacher in the school says, we'd like to invite you to actually audition now to be a part of the choir. It's 100 voices strong, and they perform in like the Philharmonic Hall here in Cologne, in various churches, but then also in other cities. And this year is the 200th anniversary of Johann Strauss. And so they're doing a special concert with a lot of his music in Cologne, in Hamburg, and in Vienna. And I'm in the process right now of working toward auditioning to be in that choir and to become a part of this organization, and with 100+ men that I don't yet know, but where I can be salt and light, but also sing. And
Awesome.
and I feel like at this stage in what we're doing, that this is a good place to just inject myself and be salt and light, and make new friends and acquaintances where I could share Jesus with them in the process of singing. And when it comes to sacred music, which they do, and they perform in various churches, I'll be singing it with conviction, not just musically. So you can pray about that process. I need to have my voice fully back a week from Thursday. And I think I'm on track for that right now.
I'd like, I'm sorry, Jason, were you
Go ahead,
finished?
Sue. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask you to pray for our Cologne team. We
Of
have of missionaries, yeah. We have two young couples and two relatively young singles, an older single, a couple who is like middle-aged, young middle-aged. Um,
Yeah.
and we really see one of our biggest ministry emphasis right now is building into them. A lot of them are going through challenging times in many different ways, whether it's financially or emotionally or uh, concerns about children, schooling. Um, and because because we've been here so long and we've gone through so many of these things, we really feel like it is our responsibility to really support them as they go through these challenges that we went through too many years ago in many different ways. Yeah, just pray for them as they face their challenges. Some of them end up having challenges in ministry, and yeah. So there's a lot of ways that we can just really be a support for them, come alongside them, encourage them, and yeah.
Yes.
Great to
Yeah.
see you guys.
Yeah, great to see you. Loving greetings to all of the church family and give them our thanks for your faithfulness, your support, your been a part of what we do here for many years. And yeah, it's one of those things that we lean on, and that is a huge encouragement for us.
Good.
Love you.
Good to
We
see you
love
all.
you
You too.
Again, thank you for making time to reconnect with us as we try to continue building relationships